Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar on the electoral season that is upon us. As you all are well aware, it is definitely a contentious time in politics. There's a lot going on, and we wanted to take this opportunity to address just how you can strategize to really get ahead of this. It's not too early, and this will cover a variety of things from campaign issues to actual candidates. We want to talk about all elements of that, so thank you again for joining us. First, we'd like to talk about just who our presenters are today. So we are very fortunate to have Lindsay O'Connor. I know she's switching over to the next slide for us. So we can see her picture. She is one of our sales leaders on the East Coast. She's been with us for over 8 years at AdTaxi. She is just a great resource. She has been very helpful in putting this together, and she's very familiar with the space. She's also a wife and mom of 2 daughters and a Penn State fan, or grad, which we won't hold against her. My name is Maria Coleman, and I am an Ohio State grad, so Lindsay and I like to really go at it during football season because, well, it's always a battle. And then we also have Bob Batchelor with us. He has been with AdTaxi for a few years as well, and he is a really great resource as far as a lot of the data is concerned. He is our Director of Customer Experience. So hello, Lindsay and Bob.
Hello.
Hello.
And we are excited to get started. First, I want to talk about our agenda, just so you know on a high level what we are planning to cover. We're going to get started with just talking about some of the information we learned from the last election. Obviously, the 2016 election cycle was a little bit different than we've seen before, and I feel like we can say that every election cycle, things have changed, technology has changed, and in turn, it changes how candidates are reaching people before they get to the polls about their candidacy or issues or whatever the case may be. So we're going to start with just some learnings that we have found prior to 2020 and what we anticipate coming in the next election as far as digital is concerned. We also then will cover finding, developing, and influencing your base, really learning what data is available to you, whether it be what you have internally or externally that you can use to reach those people that need your message, how often you need to get in front of them, and what is the best way to really convey that information. Next, we will talk about path to victory, and this really just talks about strategy, things that you could put in place that will help you get to that base or grow the base or get them to take the next step, whatever that may be. And that may look different from a donation to an actual vote or getting people to volunteer. There are a lot of different things that you'll want to focus on. So we want to talk to you about what those are and how you can really hone in on those. Last, we're going to talk about platforms, and the platforms are really important because we'll talk about them individually, but we'll also talk about how they play together. It's really important that when you're setting up your platforms and deciding where you want to allocate your budget, that you understand that they really do want to work in harmony, and you can get them to work together to really boost your strategy as a whole. And then we'll wrap it up with a summary and just cover everything that we talked about. And if we have time at the end, we will try to take some questions. So without further ado, Lindsay, I want to kick it off to you, and thank you so much.
Awesome, thanks. Thanks, I appreciate it. All right, great. Well, like Maria had mentioned, Bob also pulled together some of the information and the data that we're going to present in the beginning. And one of the best things that we want to start with is really looking at past elections, particularly the most recent election that we had, and looking and learning right from what went well and what they did that was right. One thing that was really, really interesting that Bob found was that money did not necessarily play the biggest role in the success. So as you look at the point here that says money rolls, Hillary spent a significant more money than Trump did, and obviously her she didn't win. So it doesn't necessarily mean if you have the most money that you're going to win. Instead, what the learning was here is that you use your budget really effectively and efficiently, and having the right strategy behind where those dollars are going really, really pays off. And we can move over then to the social proof standpoint. Obama did such a great job, right, of proving the value of social media and how it can be such a great platform. But Trump just took it to the next level, applying data and just accelerating the spend and resources against social media. And then as far as digital domination, again, we'll look at some numbers here in a little bit that shows the difference of what we're projecting from a traditional standpoint and spend versus digital. And you can see here, Hillary really put a lot of money towards TV, which we could call as traditional media, whereas Trump, really spent and doubled down more so on the digital side. So just some interesting learnings there. Bob, I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to add.
On that sense, it came down to data again. It was, where do I want to put this and how am I going to influence it? So when you looked at the digital, it wasn't just that he did it, he also did it in strategic areas. I think we know that in the last weeks of the campaign, he was looking at different areas that said, I need to go there. And we're going to get into it some more, but that's when you can say, I need to hit that zip code and I need to hit this type of voter. And so those were kind of those other things that he did within the digital platforms that allowed him to be successful in that realm. And we're going to dig into that some more as well.
Yep, awesome. Thank you. And then just again, kind of touching more deeply on the social aspect of it. You can see here just the difference between sheer followers, right? There's a difference of around 2 million as far as the followers go, and that adds up across all the platforms of Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And just sheer having those numbers behind the candidate really, really helped in the overall turnout of the campaign. Another really great thing to note here as you're looking to either advise a candidate or if you're a candidate yourself, on average, candidates post between 5 to 7 times a day on Facebook and 11 to 12 on Twitter. So just something important to note, that was obviously done, the study was done in May of 2016, but again, we're trying to just learn some findings that was successful from the past election. And then we look at the political ad spend. So Kantar Media is it's a company that really dives into ad spend across all platforms, whether it be traditional like print, radio, TV, and then also digital. And it's predicting that there is going to be a big increase in paid media, specifically on digital, going into the 2020 election. So again, nothing shocking here, but I think it's just important to note, because as we hear certain things on the news about data and privacy laws and all these things, regardless to what's going on, people are still spending the majority of their time with digital platforms and components. And so it just makes sense from an ad standpoint to follow, have your dollars follow where the people are. And then just some stats here to point out, again, the dollars is kind of what I described earlier. Another thing here is that voters are really polarized and much so on specific issues. And these issues are really important for you to be mindful of and aware of as you're going into this next election. So again, if you are the candidate or you're advising, where do you stand on these issues? How are you going to message and talk about these issues? I think would be a really key thing to hone in on. So things like healthcare, gun control, abortion, climate change, and national security. Next, certain states have a ton of focus, and there's going to be a lot of competition. So just from a pure dollar standpoint and sort of how the strategic component is really going to play at hand here, these specific states like Arizona, Colorado, Georgia, Iowa, North Carolina, and Maine are ones to really focus on and be mindful of. And then finally, with any sort of marketing, we talk about the power of frequency and how important it is to hit people with messages more than one time, particularly with politics. We are seeing that people need to at least see your message 12 times before it actually resonates with them. So just think about that. And if we think about it just from a pure data standpoint, as you're collecting, how many people that you want to go after in a certain area, think about hitting those people 12 times, and it really helps you kind of evaluate and figure out the budget allocation. And then Bob, you really, I think, had some great points to add here on as far as, the adoption of technology. And when we think about technology, I'm not just thinking about your iPhone or the next tablet to come out. Instead, I'm thinking about, and we're talking about here, what is, the up and coming and the next thing from a technology standpoint that people are really spending their time and focusing on. And so Bob, do you want to talk about this from, you know, Kennedy all the way up until now?
Sure. I think it's not just, to your point, of not just adapting the technology that is there. I kind of call that the well duh statement. Hey, we're going to use TV, Obama uses social, but it's using it appropriately and kind of morphing your strategy into what are the true attributes of that platform. So when Kennedy came on TV and he wore makeup, wearing makeup was the difference in, if you saw that debate between Kennedy and Nixon, if you saw it, you thought he won. If you listened to it on radio, you thought Nixon won. So it's taking, you know, just that little attribute of putting on makeup to say, this is what this platform needs. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to work on it within that platform in the best way. The Obama one is interesting with Obama and Romney. Certainly social was around, but Obama was the one that just revolutionized the approach in bringing in experts and how they leveraged that platform. I looked at it, investigated a little bit more. You know, a couple of things he did was he was way engaged with his followers. You know, he reached out to them a lot more than Romney. He also posted 4 times as much content as Romney did. So he shattered that in that regard. Then kind of an offshoot, and it comes back to some things you talked about earlier, Lindsay, when you're talking about taking an issue and just digging into that issue and marketing on that side. At this time, the economy was the bubbling subject. You know, that was the hot topic. But when Obama posted about immigration or women's rights, that he got 3 to 4 more engagements, 3 or 4 times more engagements than when he was posting about the economy. And this held true for Romney when he did post, and he posted a lot less. When he talked about healthcare and veterans' rights, those got more engagement. So it is just taking that and segmenting your approach, putting out different messages and looking for the data and the engagements on that and seeing those hot button issues. Then it comes into Trump, where I talked about his data and using it programmatic. And then where we're really bullish coming into this new future and where things are going to happen is advanced TV. Some people call it connected TV, OTT, all kinds of different acronyms for that, and programmatic audio. Big things to come on that. And then we're going to be talking about ways you remarket and kind of blend in other technologies where when Lindsay talks about, hey, you have to hit it 12 times, but it doesn't have to be 12 annoying times. You can do a 6-second bumper ad. So all kinds of different things. And we're going to be digging into that. That is exciting as you start to adapt technology.
Awesome. Thanks, Bob. Great. Yeah, and then also just it's interesting, you know, as we look to the type of people, right? So adopting these technologies, but adopting them and having the messaging right towards the right audiences. And so as we think about audiences and we think about some people growing up and really coming on the scene from this next election period, we want to look at the Gen Zs. They are projected to be the most diverse and best educated generation. They're also most likely to be very metropolitan and very ethnically diverse. So there's a lot of things here that we want to just kind of think about when it comes to this group, because again, you want to make sure your messaging and the way that you're nurturing them along applies to where they're at.
Yeah, that one, I think for me, you know, it's easy to look at our presidential candidates and draw, you know, just look at that how split, and I don't want to get too political, but, you know, we're at 50% of vote, but there's hot button issues that you guys on the line might be pushing. A candidate that already has a big persuasive vote, things of that, and how are they going to win the re-election? And when I look at that Gen Z number and seeing 10%, that's a big number to start to influence and where things can go with an election and just the importance of them stepping into this.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Thanks, Bob. And then, you know, as you kind of think about that, right, just understanding the broad strokes of the population and kind of, you know, the overall arching themes we have going here, there's also a really broad path that you can follow to set yourself up for the best success. And it's really making sure that you're having the right ad, and that right ad could be the creative or the messaging, right, towards the right person. So Bob mentioned, you know, segmenting out your audiences. You can have different messaging towards different audiences, and also serving those at the right time, right? So maybe time of day, time of month, time of year, all of that stuff could really have a play and be influential in the campaign. Also the right place and the right device. So right place could be geography, location. You might speak to someone in a city differently than someone in the country. And then same with device, right? Make sure that it's tailored to a mobile, tablet, TV, what have you. And then utilizing data to help drive all of these decisions and help you determine what that right ad should look like, the right person, the right place, the right device, etc. So now what we're going to look at is finding, developing, and influencing your base a little bit more. And one thing that's available to everybody that should be being utilized right off the bat is the state and county level registered voter files. That's something that you all can get access to. There's also telephone source files, thousands of consumer fields that are just out there, and there's just a ton of data. The US Census data is out there for us to pull from and leverage and really apply into some of these campaigns. And then obviously the election return data you can look at as well. And that's just really great insight to people who have already voted and kind of get a handle on what they've done in the past. And then you can also apply some just ancillary things. And again, this is just important and a great way, again, to segment and really hone in on the type of people that you want to go after. So first and foremost is area, right? We want to make sure that we're not just doing broad strokes. We want to go after, very specific areas if that's what's important to you. So if a congressional district is important or, state house districts, depending on what it is that you're trying to accomplish, you can really hone in on those specific areas. The next would be contributions and donations. So it's really great to understand where some of the people are spending their dollars, right? Where is their heart going? Where are they contributing and helping out? And you can understand, are they spending more dollars? Is your base spending more dollars in healthcare or within conservative causes or liberal causes, right? You can take a peek at all of those things to get a better understanding of your messaging and how you might approach it. From a household level, you can get an idea, do they have children in the home? What type of home is it? Or do they own? Do they rent? You can also understand, how many people in the house are actually voters, what their income looks like. So this kind of, again, just gives you some nice idea and bullet points on the people that you want to go after. And then finally, we can drill that down to the individual. We can understand their voting history, their age, their marital status, their military status. All of those things can be found and utilized as a data set for targeting your ads. And then another one I find very, very interesting is lifestyle and issues. So like I alluded to before, there are some really key topics that are going to be important going into this next election. And you can actually target based on those key areas. So you see gun control here, homeland security, affordable housing, right? There's all of these things that we touched on, and you can target people based on them showing the propensity to be interested in these categories. So bottom line here is really focus on that data, right? Utilize this to your advantage, much like Trump did, as we described. It's very, very important. And it's also important too that as you're going out there and you're reaching out to a subset of people that you think makes sense, also start collecting your own first party data. And I'll give you a better understanding of what that means and how to exactly do it. But all of this information is going to help drive you to success and really building that strategy moving forward. So path to victory. So how do we do it, right? We understand there's all these cool dynamics and ways to reach people, but how do we build up and make a successful campaign? The first thing to do is really understand your goals, right? Before you can get to the finish line, you need to know where it is. And so you can have multiple goals all at the same time and multiple campaigns running against those goals. But, just for the sake of us talking through this, let's focus on one specific goal that's important to you. There's awareness, right? That's going to be very key in the beginning. Persuasion, data capture is the second, fundraising, getting out the vote, and then obviously winning is the end all be all goal here, right? But we need to help nurture and move these voters through the funnel and through the journey with you to help get that win going. There's a couple of different types of campaigns that you can utilize when you're looking at messaging. The first one is introduction, right? This is just obvious. We want to make sure that we say, hey, here's the candidate, here's who I am, here's what I believe in, this is what I think, and try to align those candidates with the voters. The next would be endorsement. So this helps you leverage and identify with a larger group of people that your voters also have an interest in. So just kind of aligning and filling in that cohort, if you will. The next would be a positive. So something that just shows people who you are. It shows that you're into and moving things in a positive direction and taking things to the next level, making people feel good about what you have to offer and what the standpoint is moving forward. The next one, my least favorite, but I'm sure it's effective, is the negative, right? So really, putting putting some spin or putting the light on the negatives about your opponent, and showing those clear differences between you and your opponent. And then finally, testimonial, having people citizens that are, relatable, that will say, share their stories or talk about things that, maybe have aligned with whatever it is that your platform is on. And I think that's probably the best if you think about basic psychology. If I said Bob is the smartest data scientist in the ad taxi world, or Bob says, hey, I'm the smartest data guy that you've ever seen, you're probably going to receive it much better from me saying Bob is great versus him saying he's great himself, right? So that's just endorsement.
You didn't have the type of campaign of lying then.
Right. Yeah. So see, but everybody thinks Bob's great now just because I said it. So now, so that's going to move us into the next piece, right? So you can kind of identify who it is that you want to go after and the types of messaging that you might want to put behind that to align with your goals. But there's also micro goals, right? So you have these broad goals of awareness or just getting out, maybe trying to get those fundraising or donations. But how do you do that once you get people to your site? Right, and so in the traditional sense of marketing, we think about prospecting, but this is just, again, you're going out and you're hitting the masses, and you're doing this by leveraging third-party data. Third-party data is all of those segments that I went through, like household income, interests, issues, that type of thing. You can also use your first-party data, and first-party data are people who have engaged with you in the past, who have voted for you in the past, or are in your mailings, big supporters or people that have just been with you from the beginning. That's your first-party data. And then there's another segment called category and interest, and so you can really align yourself with content or other type of, articles and things that would align with whatever platform you're running on. So you want to cast a really large strategic net, utilizing all of these different data segments and trying to drive these people to your site. But again, you don't want to just drive them to the homepage and have them bounce out a second later. You want these people to be engaged. You want them to read about the issues on your site, look at the videos, engage with the content, and all of the great things that you have on your site about you and what you stand for. From there, you're going to prioritize, right, what those things are. So all of the things that you want people to do on your site, one might be better than the other. So let's look at it, right? You get them to the site. Now what do you want them to do? Do you want them to complete a donation? Would you like them to look at a specific page that maybe speaks to an issue that you're really trying to push and speak on? Do you want to get email signups, collect more data, collect more people and voter information? How about a video view, right? Video is such a huge component, and being able to ensure that people are spending time looking at the video that you've created could be important, or maybe that they engage in chat or give you a phone call. So whatever that important metric is, make sure, and they're all important, but kind of prioritize what they are. And then as you set up your campaign, what you can do is see, okay, obviously I'm very happy that anybody I've put outreach to came into my site and took the time to actually come and read about me. So we don't want to just dismiss those people, and we absolutely want to make sure that we're staying in front of them. And that's called retargeting. We want to make sure that we're re-messaging and staying in front of the people who have engaged with us before. But let's say that I, that drove somebody to go to an issues page and read about something that I really, really valued. That's probably a little bit more valuable to you than somebody who just came to the homepage and maybe looked at your profile. So when you're setting up bidding strategies, you can actually spend more money to ensure that you're showing ads to those people instead of the ones just on the homepage. And then it goes on and on, right? So maybe events is the second most priority, and then donations page is the best. You're really going to double down on the people who got to your donation page but didn't actually donate. You're going to spend more money to get them back to that part of your page because they clearly got further along. So this is a great way for you to, again, be really strategic and efficient with your budget as you're setting up your campaigns. So then how do we do that by platform, right? How do we, understanding we're going to drive all of these people in, there's some really smart and great approaches that we can take when we're utilizing all of the platforms that are out there and available to us. And this is just a great example to think about. I know Maria mentioned this earlier, you know, that using an omni-channel approach and having these platforms really work nicely together. This is a great example. So let's think about Spencer, right? He voted in the past. He's not really affiliated with anything. He can't seem to find somebody who's fully aligned on his, you know, financial or fiscal and social stances. So now it's the election time and he sees an ad on Instagram and it focuses on an issue that is important to him. But at the moment, you know what, he's out with his buddies. He's not going to click on this and get heavy into a political issue. So instead, later on that evening, he's sitting down having a beer and he searches to figure out a little bit more about that issue. So he searches for the candidate's name. And instead of, you know, going to read an article on CNN or something along those lines, he goes to the candidate's page. What's great with that, then he's watching and streaming something on Hulu, and boom, he gets an ad that relates and speaks to that message and the issue that he was reading about a little bit earlier that day. And then, you know, a few days later, he gets targeted. He's on ESPN reading, you know, about Penn State football highlights, and boom, he's retargeted with a display ad. So this is kind of a nice path, and this is how, you know, this is what happens, right? It's not always this linear, and this doesn't happen with everybody, but this is just normal life, right? People are on multiple devices doing things in multiple ways, and it's just important that you have a very consistent, nurturing message to people throughout this process. And you can do that on a number of platforms. So search, social, native, display, video, addressable TV, audio, and utilizing an omni-channel approach for all really will help you set up for success. So I'm going to dig in a little bit more to each one just to give you guys some highlights on what to think about as you're designing and thinking about strategy for each of these. So the first thing is programmatic. And when I talk about programmatic is really just the art of buying audiences across all of these platforms here. So these platforms, display, connected TV, audio, and native, are open to what we call an exchange. And those exchanges allow you to target an audience and reach them across any one of these platforms. What's really great is that they're all relevant and they all have very similar attributes, and they can help you along the way. So what some of the power that it brings is you can reach consumers across multiple devices. So you can reach the same consumer across all of the devices that I just outlined before. You can also really personalize the creative, and you can make sure that the message and the device that you're serving on and the geography is very specific to those people. I'll talk about view through, but that's a really important piece that can be measured across programmatic platforms. And then most importantly, they're brand safe and measurable. So I'm going to dig into advanced TV. All of these things are important that I described, but the most hot topic, if you will, is advanced TV, connected TV, what have you. And I think it's just really important to understand in this programmatic buying space how much inventory and how much is actually going on there. So there's approximately 5 billion video views happening daily across that exchange, across the open exchange of programmatic buying. That's insane. That's a lot of impressions and views. And one of the reasons why, you know, video is so hot, if you think about just the pure, especially with politics, video allows you to combine motion and visuals and a story, and all of those things combined can really help elicit emotion. And since it's such an emotional topic anyway, if you can really touch on that, it's going to help resonate with whoever it is that you're trying to reach. And the other beauty of this is that it has the impact of television, but it it has this 1-to-1 ratio that is just so huge. So I'll give you an example. I live in a neighborhood and I'm a mom, so a candidate might be trying to reach out to me with a specific message, maybe catered towards moms, and I'm streaming content on my television through a connected device, whereas the person across the street is a 60-year-old couple, they're empty nesters, they're in a totally different stage of their life, totally different mindset and values that are important to them. And so the message that you can serve to that couple is going to be very, very different than me as a 30-something-year-old mother, right? So that's kind of that impact, that you don't have to do like a TV buy where that message would be the same across all of the TVs in my neighborhood. Instead, you can be very specific and tailored, which is pretty great. You can also utilize sequential messaging. And basically that just goes again to the power of nurturing. So again, let's say that I see an ad on TV for a specific specific issue that you want to speak to, and then that I see the ad, so a week later I'm getting a different message that helps to nurture and really complement and speed up along whatever process it is you want me to do. The other thing too that's important is that it skews younger, right? So we all want to kind of make sure that we're focusing on all the ages and understanding especially the up and comers, and so this is a really great platform to reach them. So when we talk about display, display has been the first platform to really prove out some of the concepts I'm going to talk about, but like I said, the platforms such as connected TV and audio and native can all still provide the same things. First and foremost, audience insights. You're able to and that's just digital, right? You can really get insights as to what the audience is doing, specifically when they come to your site, just to help you make better decisions. The other thing is view through, and I'm going to describe what this is. So again, I'll just give an example of myself. So let's say I am I'm working, throughout the day, and I get an ad while I'm on, I took a little break, I get on Facebook and I get an ad for a candidate that's speaking to something regarding moms, right? They're still trying to appeal to me, but I don't click on that ad. Instead, what I do is later that evening, I get on the couch and I'm kind of trying to relax, and I Google that candidate just to learn a little bit more because it piques my interest. That ad had value, right? It was an impression. It made an impression on me, but I didn't click on it. So a lot of times what we see is that people put so much value on the one impression and to the click, but they forget about what it actually did, which it made an impression to drive me to take an action, right? And that's called view through analysis. So it shows that even though I didn't click on the ad, it still had a really important part in driving me to be interested and to learn more about this candidate. And then furthermore, we're able to look at conversions and see, okay, well, once I got to this site, did I look at a specific issues page? Did I go to the donations page, right? What did I do? Did I put my email in to get more updates and newsletters to learn more about this candidate? Those are all certain conversions that are really important. And again, view through and click data can all be mapped to conversion data. So just another piece, as we talk about video, and again, just the importance of video as a creative format, this can also be utilized across all of these channels. So search, social, display, and just from an example on the search side, videos can be promoted within Google based on your past searches. So if I've recently been searching for some sort of issue, you can make sure that your video is showing up for to me, right, to kind of align with those similar issues. On social media, obviously, you can do so much of the targeting based on, interest and demographics, and you can serve a really great video ad on social media. And then display. So again, maybe I'm on my local news site, and before I get to see, highlights of the Penn State game, I'm going to get a video that plays before I get to watch the highlight video on my local news station. So that's just an example of some of the ways that you can utilize video. And again, it really, really is a great means to tell your story. We're going to dive a little bit more into social media. Social media just lends itself to so many great things like custom audiences, really being able to, again, measure conversions, much like you can with programmatic platforms. And then you can also really build up your base, right? So all of those things are super important, as we noted before with Hillary and Trump. Some cool ad formats that you can utilize. One is called a clicks and conversion. And so what that does is it allows you to ask for a specific action. So instead of, just putting your name out there and having that, which again is important, but maybe this time it's saying, donate today, help support me, support you, right? Ask for something, and then you can drive people to the donations page of your website. Just ask for it and get them right there to help accomplish whatever it is that you're looking for your base to do. Next could be video. So again, you can promote video across social, which again will help you tell your story. And another one I think is so great is carousel. It's probably one of my favorites because it allows you to take part in multiple things all in one ad. So you're able to, again, maybe have a video that shows your story, and then 2, ask for donations, 3, hit a specific issue. And each one of these pictures, as you can see here, can all have its own little message and its own landing page. So it makes it very convenient for the end user who's, if I want to learn about an issue, I don't have to go just to your homepage and try to find it. It'll take me right there. Or if I want to donate, again, I don't have to look around. It's going to take me right there. So some really, really great things and ways to be dynamic. Another piece that I think is extremely key for everybody to note here is the authorization process that you need to go through on Facebook. So, and Facebook and Instagram are obviously one and the same. So utilizing this for both is really, really important. So I just wanted to point this out because we do know the importance of social, and in case you haven't taken these steps yet, it's really important. And then the next one would be Snapchat. So Snapchat is such an awesome platform, again, when we think about video. But one thing that I particularly love about it is that this last point, which is a large percent of Snapchatters, do not use other social platforms. So we think about, again, the power of social media. And we always think quickly of Facebook and Instagram because, my goodness, it's huge, and we should. But Snapchat, there are people that's all they do day in and day out, and they're not on any other. And so if we're not having a hand in Snapchat, you're missing an audience in that social ecosystem that we know is so extremely important. Some things just to keep in mind, that 83% of those users are under 34 years of age. So that's, again, as you're segmenting and tailoring your messaging, think about that. And there, in total, if you want to know, there's 184 million daily active users on that platform, which is pretty huge. Search is the next one, and search is just so key and critical to be a part of it. Now, search basically is Google, Bing, right? So making sure that you are showing up either organically or with the paid approach on the issues, or for your page, or people are searching for a competitor candidate, making sure that you're showing up, right? All of that stuff is super important. And I think one key thing here at the top is that Google is the #1 referral site for political campaigns, and it accounts for 1/3 of the direct site traffic. And what that means is people actually just going looking for you directly. It's pretty huge. I think that too, as we think about the device, so again, we're talking about being strategic with not only our dollars, but where we're spending our time. 60% of election-related searches happen on a mobile device. We don't want to discount, desktop or tablet, but it's just as we prioritize our budgets and put dollars in certain areas, understanding that mobile is going to be a pretty key piece to this. And then finally, Bing, we don't want to discount Bing. Google does get the lion's share, but Bing has far less competition. They tend to have higher conversion rates, and largely the audience tends to be a little bit more affluent and sophisticated. So again, audience segments, understanding who your audience is and where they are, Bing could be a really great spot for you and something to be considered. Next would be YouTube. So Google owns YouTube, and it does fall somewhat in the search realm just because Google has so much search data that they're able to use and apply when they're targeting videos within YouTube. And I thought this was just so incredible that 110 million hours of candidate issues and issue-related content is watched on YouTube. So think about, again, as you're making videos and where you're placing and putting those videos, please don't just think about, traditional TV and cable. You want to be thinking about some of these really, really key digital components to put your video and to utilize these channels. I also thought this was great that 50% of daily YouTubers said that their political opinions have been influenced by YouTube, which is just crazy. And 59% who turn to YouTube learn more about candidates are under 35. So again, it's going to skew a little bit younger. So just again, thinking about segmenting audiences and how you're prioritizing your budget, that's pretty important. This is also kind of cool, the trending topics within YouTube is just something to be mindful of, but I think it's cool that we have this data available. Refugees, immigration, gun control, economy, and healthcare. So you can see kind of the differences as far as the percentages, but you can see where some of the importance is within the YouTube arena. And then this is just something to drive home. Again, I just want to touch on what Maria mentioned head on, which is multiple platforms working together is so important. And although this is just 2 platforms, we did do a study to see against our campaigns, what is the difference, right? And we say it and we know it, but let's have the data show it. And you can see here that campaigns that were running search only had about a cost per action of $20. Social only had a cost per action around 17. Search and social together, when you were running both of those components in conjunction with each other, the CPA decreased by 46%. So again, when we talk about being really strategic and efficient with your budget, don't just double down on 1 or 2 things. Look across all and make sure that you're being effective, because they all kind of work hand in hand and help each other throughout the process.
Hey,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, just on that one, since you've kind of painted me as the data geek, I just want to call attention, we call this the Reese's peanut butter effect when putting these 2 together. But this was an internal study. It had about 300 accounts. And I feel like, as a marketer, a lot of times it's very easy for us to cherry pick. Hey, look what we did for this client. Hey, look what we did for this client. This is 300 businesses that had search and social together, all kinds of different businesses. And this is the impact we saw across that. So we didn't just cherry pick one little thing. This happens when these 2 are put together. And also just to call out, this is not a CPC. This isn't cost per click. This is cost per action. So when we talked about what were the goals of the site, we looked at those goals. Were we achieving those? So it's a cost per action, not a CPC. Just to kind of clarify that a little bit and touch on it.
Oh, good point. Yeah, because that would be a high cost per click, I guess, right? So yeah, cost per actions, that the people that we drove that really took a meaningful step on the website, that we were, obviously that action was super important. Thank you. Thank you, Data Nerd. I'm going to skip over then to our case study here. So we ran an omni-channel approach campaign for a candidate. It was during the midterm elections. And what was interesting, so we used a multi-channels, right? We used display, banner ads, connected TV, YouTube, Facebook, email. And some really great learnings and insight came from this. One is that our overall omni-channel approach, by utilizing all of these platforms and having them work together, drove 47% of the website sessions that led to the election, leading up to the election, excuse me. Facebook drove the highest number of new users, where connected TV drove the highest percentage of new visits to the site. So, that's huge. We want to obviously encourage our base and the people that have engaged with us before, and you can do that through multiple channels, but being able to get new people engaged and in there is huge, and Facebook and connected TV help to drive some of that. Display banner ads drove the most awareness and resulted in the most conversions. which is also pretty phenomenal. And I think that directly relates to a very smart strategic retargeting strategy, the one that I had outlined earlier, right? So making sure that you're bidding appropriately based on the action people are taking on your site, and making sure too that you're personalizing the message as you're retargeting. And then email was also a really, really important piece, and it helped to drive people to the site, and people from email tend to spend more time on site once they got there. So those are some important pieces to point out. Oh, and YouTube too, it had a nice completion rate. So just some key pieces to think about, and this was again a strategy that we utilized that worked really nicely and helped to have the candidate win. So it was a success. So in summary, just some things to note and some key highlights for you all to think about as we conclude the webinar is that really knowing your audience is key while leveraging the data available. So, you know, we like to take that three-prong approach that I pointed out in the prospecting and retargeting slide, where you want to go after this third-party audiences, utilizing your first-party and adding category targeting, and using all of those together and seeing which ones are actually doing meaningful actions once they come to your site. Let your audience determine your platform. So once you figured out your audiences, you know, we really honed in on some specific key audiences that are highly active on some of these digital platforms. If you're trying to go after some of those 34 and youngers, then maybe you need to be considering a lot of the platforms we talked about today. Follow the digital evolution and embrace your new technology. So like Bob talked about with Kennedy, you know, don't just follow the technology, but fully embrace it and immerse yourself in what that technology needs to be successful. Have a cohesive strategy, align your goals with the messaging. So whatever the goal is, whether it's awareness, donation, just issue awareness, whatever it is, making sure that your messaging is very much in line with that, and it'll help get you the best impact. And be there early and often, right? So multiple times, 12 times is a minimum of getting in front of your people and your base in order to have your message resonate. So it's really, really key. So I think that's it. Bob, Maria, is there anything else that we want to go over?
My closing statement would be, you know, I'm happy to talk about politics without getting political. Hopefully you found this to be non-biased, a little non-partisan, and just a way to help you be more successful in your digital marketing efforts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's key, right? Is we're pretty well versed in what works well in the digital landscape, and has been able to execute that multiple times over with a 93% retention rate of our clients. So pretty huge, and would absolutely love to talk to any of you. So thank you all for your time today. I appreciate it. I know we're all busy, and so hopefully this was helpful. Feel free to reach out if you have any additional questions. And again, thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.